Malik Johnson, the CEO of TechVision, sat in his luxurious corner office, staring at the employee satisfaction report on his desk. Usually, the panoramic view of the city gave him a sense of accomplishment, but today, it felt meaningless. The numbers on the report showed a 15% drop in employee satisfaction in one of their Virginia offices for the third month in a row. Complaints of favoritism, toxicity, and even potential racism plagued the feedback. Malik felt an unfamiliar chill as he realized he had to act immediately. He couldn't afford to lose the core values he had worked so hard to build. Malik decided to take drastic action. He would go undercover as a receptionist. Disguising himself, with a simple uniform and a fake mustache, Malik walked into his own company. He knew that, in doing this, he could gain a true perspective of what was happening in the office. With mixed emotions of fear and excitement, Malik donned his new persona. He was now just another face in the crowd, far removed from his powerful identity as CEO. As he worked the front desk, he quickly overheard a shocking conversation. Two senior managers casually dismissed complaints from the customer service team about increased workload, speaking in condescending tones and implying that HR can handle it while they focused on more important tasks. Malik's heart sank. Had he inadvertently fostered this type of workplace? The day continued, and Malik found himself juggling tasks he never imagined he would need to do. Answering calls, organizing documents, and greeting visitors, these were all things he had taken for granted. He started noticing how different people interacted with him, not knowing he was the CEO. Some employees barely acknowledged his existence, while others were outright dismissive. Malik started to understand the frustrations his lower-level employees faced daily. During the lunch break, Malik sat quietly in the staff room, observing and listening. Two employees were chatting nearby, venting about their workloads and the lack of support from upper management. "I swear, they don't care about us," one of them said. "It's like we're just here to keep the machine running, and no one cares if we're exhausted." The other employee nodded in agreement, adding, "Yeah, and don't even get me started on the favoritism. If you're not part of their little club, forget about getting promoted." Malik felt a pang of guilt. These were the very issues he thought his company had avoided. He had always believed that TechVision was a place where everyone felt valued, but the reality was far from his expectations. He realized that his distance from the day-to-day operations had created a blind spot. The culture he had worked so hard to cultivate was being eroded right under his nose, and he had been oblivious. Later that afternoon, Malik experienced another eye-opening moment. A young woman approached the front desk, visibly upset. She had been trying to get assistance from HR regarding a harassment issue, but no one had taken her seriously. "I've sent emails, I've called, and nothing," she said, her voice shaky with frustration. Malik listened attentively, his heart heavy. He promised to pass her concerns along, though she clearly had little hope that anything would change. By the end of the day, Malik was physically and emotionally exhausted. He had only spent a single day as a receptionist, but it was enough to show him that something was deeply wrong within TechVision. The disconnect between management and staff was larger than he could have imagined, and the culture was far more toxic than he had feared. As he left the office that evening, Malik knew he couldn't just return to his comfortable corner office and pretend everything was fine. He needed to take real action to fix the problems he had seen, not just for the company's success, but for the people who made it run. Malik was determined to rebuild TechVision into the company he had always dreamed it would be, a place where everyone, from the receptionist to the executives, felt respected and valued. This undercover mission had just begun, and Malik was ready to do whatever it took to set things right. The following day, Malik resumed his new role. He struggled with managing the switchboard, the influx of calls, and the endless visitor requests. The day's physical demands were nothing compared to the emotional weight of what he was discovering. During his lunch break, Malik sat in the staff room, listening as management openly mocked the staff, particularly the customer service team. It wasn't just the work complaints, it was the disdain in their voices that hurt him. He had built TechVision on a foundation of respect, yet here, in his very own office, the people he trusted had cultivated a toxic environment. Doris, a seasoned receptionist, had taken Malik under her wing, showing him the ropes. During a break, she said, "You're doing well, but don't expect anyone upstairs to care. To them, we're invisible." Her words struck Malik like a physical blow, a confirmation that his company was not what he believed it to be. Doris's bluntness made him realize how invisible his hard-working staff felt, and he knew something had to change. Throughout the day, Malik paid close attention to the small interactions happening around him. He noticed the way employees hesitated before approaching the management team, their eyes downcast, their voices small. It was a sign of fear and resignation, a sign that respect had been replaced by intimidation. He observed the way Doris handled her tasks, efficiently, without complaint, even when those tasks were unreasonable. She was the glue that kept things together, yet her efforts went largely unnoticed by those above her. Later in the afternoon, Malik overheard two senior managers talking near the front desk. They were discussing the possibility of laying off some customer service representatives. "They're replaceable," one of them said casually, his tone dismissive. "We can always find someone else to do that job." Malik clenched his jaw, feeling a mix of anger and disbelief. How could they be so indifferent to the people who worked so hard to keep the company running? Malik's frustration grew as the day went on. He watched as Linda, a member of the management team, walked by without so much as acknowledging the front desk staff. Her eyes swept over them as if they were furniture, there but unimportant. Malik had always thought of Linda as an asset to the company, but now he saw her true colors. She was part of the problem, part of the culture that dismissed the value of those who weren't in positions of power. As Malik worked through the day, he found solace in small moments of kindness. Henry, an IT worker, stopped by the front desk to help with a technical issue Malik was struggling with. Unlike the management team, Henry was patient and understanding. He treated Malik, the receptionist, with the same respect he would have shown any executive. It was a stark contrast to the dismissive attitude of the managers, and it gave Malik hope that there were still good people within TechVision who embodied the values he had once envisioned. By the end of the day, Malik was mentally and emotionally drained. The weight of what he had discovered pressed heavily on his shoulders. He could see the divide between management and staff more clearly than ever. There were those like Linda, who treated others with disdain, and then there were people like Doris and Henry, who worked hard and cared about their colleagues despite the lack of recognition. That evening, as Malik left the office, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. He had seen enough to understand that change was necessary and that it had to start at the top. He couldn't ignore the toxic culture that had taken root within his company, and he knew he had to act quickly if he wanted to save TechVision from imploding. The next step wouldn't be easy, but Malik was determined. He would confront the issues head-on, starting with the management team. It was time to remind everyone at TechVision what the company was supposed to stand for: respect, integrity, and a commitment to valuing every employee. Malik knew that transforming the company's culture would be a long journey, but he was ready to take the first step. On Malik's third day, Linda, one of the key management figures, approached him at the reception desk. She scanned the area, her face twisted in irritation. "Is this seriously how you're managing things?" she snapped. "Papers everywhere, phones ringing, you people can't even do the basics right." Her words stung Malik deeply. You people? What did she mean by that? Malik felt a wave of anger rise inside him. As Linda stormed off, Malik noticed how other staff members flinched as she walked by. He couldn't believe how someone he trusted was treating his employees. Henry, an IT worker standing nearby, tried to comfort him. "Don't think too much about it. That's just how she is." Henry's words made Malik realize that Linda's behavior was normalized. It wasn't just one bad apple, it was a pattern. And it had to end. Through his undercover work, Malik began to notice two standout employees, Angela, a senior accountant, and Henry, who always seemed to bring positivity wherever he went. Angela stayed late most nights, missing important family events. Henry was the go-to guy, always patient and ready to help, even with the smallest of tasks. Malik wondered why he had never noticed them before. Why wasn't their hard work being rewarded? As Malik watched Angela one evening, he saw her sitting at her desk, her eyes tired but focused. She was working on quarterly reports, her determination evident in every keystroke. Her phone buzzed, and Malik overheard her conversation. It was her daughter, asking if Angela would be home in time for dinner. Angela hesitated, then apologized softly, saying she needed to finish her work. Malik's heart sank. Angela was sacrificing precious time with her family for a company that didn't even recognize her dedication. The more Malik observed, the more he realized that people like Angela and Henry were the backbone of Tech Vision. They were the ones putting in the extra hours, going above and beyond their job descriptions, all without recognition. The company had failed them, and it was Malik's responsibility to change that. Later that week, Malik found himself in the staff room again, this time with Henry. Henry was helping a new intern troubleshoot a computer issue. Malik watched as Henry patiently explained every step, his tone calm and encouraging. The intern, who had been visibly nervous, began to relax, even smiling as she started to understand the process. Henry's kindness and willingness to help was a stark contrast to the dismissive attitude of the management team. Malik decided to strike up a conversation with Henry. He asked him how he managed to stay so positive despite the challenges. Henry shrugged and smiled. "I guess I just try to focus on what I can do to help. It's not always easy, but I figure if I can make someone's day a little better, it's worth it." His words resonated with Malik. Henry embodied the values that Malik had always envisioned for Tech Vision: kindness, dedication, and a genuine desire to make a difference. One evening, as Malik was wrapping up his shift at the front desk, he saw Angela leaving the office. She looked exhausted, her shoulders slumped, her eyes weary. Malik decided to walk over and thank her for her hard work. Angela looked surprised, then smiled, a tired but genuine expression. "Thank you," she said. "It's nice to hear that once in a while." Her words were a reminder of how far the company had strayed from its original mission, to value every employee and make them feel seen. Malik knew that he couldn't let this continue. He had to find a way to recognize and reward the hard work of people like Angela and Henry. He also had to address the toxic behavior of individuals like Linda. It wasn't enough to just observe, he needed to take action. The next morning, Malik overheard Linda speaking with another manager. They were discussing the upcoming budget cuts, and Linda was advocating for cutting positions in customer service. "They're not essential," she said dismissively. Malik felt his anger boil over. How could she be so blind to the value of these employees? He knew he had to confront her, but he also needed a plan to ensure that the culture at Tech Vision changed for good. That night, Malik sat in his small rented apartment, thinking about everything he had witnessed over the past few days. He realized that the problem wasn't just Linda, it was a systemic issue. The culture of Tech Vision had become one where only those at the top were valued, while everyone else was seen as expendable. Malik knew that if he wanted to change things, he needed to start at the top. Malik decided to extend his undercover mission for another week. He needed more time to gather information, to understand the full scope of the problems, and to come up with a plan to fix them. He couldn't just confront Linda without having a clear strategy for how to move forward. He needed to be smart about this, for Angela, for Henry, and for every other employee who deserved better. As he lay in bed that night, Malik felt a renewed sense of determination. He had started this journey to understand why employee satisfaction was dropping, but it had become so much more than that. It was about saving the soul of the company he had built. It was about making sure that every employee, from the receptionist to the senior managers, felt valued and respected. Malik knew it wouldn't be easy, but he was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Just as Malik was beginning to understand the depth of the cultural issues within Tech Vision, something unexpected happened. Linda, who had been harsh to Malik and the other staff, came to Malik's office. Her demeanor was different, nervous, almost apologetic. She looked around before closing the door behind her. Mr. Johnson, there's something you need to know, she began, her voice wavering. Malik looked up, surprised by the shift in her tone. Linda took a deep breath and continued, I've been wrong about a lot of things, and I've treated people poorly, but there's something else going on. Someone has been manipulating the employees, feeding misinformation, and creating unrest. I thought you should know. Malik blinked, trying to process her words. Who could possibly be behind this kind of manipulation? Linda's face showed genuine concern, and Malik could see a hint of regret in her eyes. Before he could ask any questions, Linda's phone buzzed with an alert. Her expression changed to one of alarm. She quickly unlocked her phone and turned the screen towards Malik. Look at this, she said, her voice trembling. The footage from the office security cameras showed a masked figure moving through the building, approaching different employees. The figure spoke to them, and though there was no sound, it was clear from their body language that they were scared. The masked person gestured threateningly, and Malik could see employees visibly shrinking away, nodding as if agreeing to something under duress. Malik's heart pounded in his chest. Who could be behind this? And why would they want to create chaos within TechVision? As if on cue, a knock came at the door. Linda opened it, revealing a tall, stern-looking man in his early 50s. He carried a briefcase and wore an air of authority. Mr. Johnson, my name is Oliver Grant, he said, extending his hand. I'm a private investigator. I believe you're in need of some answers. Malik shook his hand, still trying to catch up with the unfolding events. What's going on? He asked, his voice edged with frustration and confusion. Oliver set his briefcase on the table and opened it, revealing a series of documents and photographs. We've been investigating some suspicious activities linked to your company. It appears that a former employee, someone who was let go under difficult circumstances, has been orchestrating a campaign against TechVision. This individual has been using their knowledge of the company's inner workings to manipulate employees and create unrest. Malik frowned as he looked at the photographs. They showed a man he vaguely recognized, a former analyst who had been terminated about a year ago due to misconduct. Malik remembered the situation. It had been a difficult decision, but the employee had crossed too many lines, and there had been no other option. This person has a grudge against you and the company, Oliver continued. He's been using his connections to spread false information and intimidate your employees. He's trying to make it look like the issues within TechVision are due to poor leadership, when in fact, he's been pulling the strings from the shadows. Malik felt a mix of anger and disbelief. He had suspected that the culture issues were purely internal, a failing of leadership and management. But now he realized that there was a hidden hand at play, one that had been deliberately sowing discord and feeding the toxic environment. Why didn't anyone come forward earlier? Malik asked, his voice filled with frustration. Why didn't they report this? Linda looked down, her face flushed with guilt. They were scared, Mr. Johnson. He's been threatening them, using personal information against them. Some of the employees were afraid they'd lose their jobs or worse if they spoke up. Malik nodded, the weight of the situation settling heavily on his shoulders. He turned to Oliver. What do we do now? Oliver smiled, a determined glint in his eyes. First, we expose him. We've already gathered enough evidence to prove what he's been doing. Once we bring this to light, the employees will feel safer, and we can start rebuilding the trust that's been broken. Malik took a deep breath. It was a relief to know that the problems weren't entirely due to internal failings, but it was also terrifying to realize how vulnerable his company had been to outside interference. He knew that they had a long road ahead to rebuild the culture at TechVision, but at least now, he had a clearer picture of what needed to be done. Thank you, Oliver, Malik said. And Linda, I appreciate you coming forward. We have a lot of work to do, but I'm committed to making this right. Linda nodded, her eyes filled with both regret and hope. I want to help fix this, Mr. Johnson. I know I've made mistakes, but I'm ready to do whatever it takes to make things right. Malik gave her a small, encouraging smile. We're going to need everyone on board to turn this around. Let's get started. With that, Malik knew that the battle to save TechVision wasn't over, it was just beginning. But now, he had allies and a clearer understanding of the enemy they were facing. It was time to take back control of his company and ensure that every employee felt safe, valued, and respected. Malik knew that immediate action was required. He convened an emergency board meeting, laying out everything he had learned during his week undercover. The board members were visibly shaken. Malik spoke of Angela's hard work, Henry's positive influence, and the blatant disregard shown by Linda and others in management. He announced a restructuring plan, one focused on transparency, merit-based promotions, and respect. Malik could see the unease in the eyes of the board members as they listened. He could tell that they were struggling to come to terms with the fact that the issues had grown so deeply under their leadership. But Malik was determined to lead by example. He didn't just want words, he wanted action. "We need to change the culture here at TechVision, starting from the top," Malik said firmly. "We need to foster an environment where every employee feels valued and heard. It's not just about productivity, it's about people. If we want TechVision to succeed, we need to take care of our greatest asset, our employees." The board members slowly nodded in agreement. There was an unspoken acknowledgement that the time for change had come. Malik outlined his plan in more detail. It included regular feedback sessions, an overhaul of the promotion process to ensure meritocracy, and mandatory leadership training to emphasize empathy and respect in management. There would also be new avenues for employees to report issues without fear of retaliation. Once the board meeting concluded, Malik wasted no time in putting his plan into action. Linda, who had been instrumental in creating the toxic environment, was suspended immediately. Malik knew that simply firing her wouldn't address the deeper issue. She needed to understand why her behavior was unacceptable. He required Linda, along with a few others who had displayed similar attitudes, to attend intensive training on workplace behavior and emotional intelligence. Malik knew that it was equally important to recognize and reward those who embodied the values of TechVision. Angela, who had shown unwavering dedication despite her personal sacrifices, was promoted to a senior role where her efforts would be properly acknowledged. She would no longer have to choose between her family and her career, as her new position would allow for more flexibility and better work-life balance. Henry, the IT worker whose positivity had made such a difference in the office, was given the opportunity to lead the IT department. Malik wanted Henry's attitude to be the standard for leadership within TechVision, one based on empathy, patience, and genuine care for others. Henry was initially taken aback by the offer, but Malik assured him that his approach to work and his natural leadership skills made him the perfect fit for the role. "We need people like you to lead, Henry," Malik said. "People who understand that a leader's job is to lift others up, not tear them down." Henry's eyes filled with emotion as he accepted the position, grateful for the recognition. Malik also instituted a new mentorship program, pairing experienced employees like Doris with new hires. He wanted the seasoned staff to have a voice in shaping the future of TechVision and to help build a supportive environment for everyone. Doris, who had been a quiet but steadfast figure in the office, was thrilled to be part of this initiative. She had always cared deeply for her colleagues and was eager to help guide the company in a positive direction. In addition, Malik introduced anonymous employee satisfaction surveys, giving everyone a chance to provide honest feedback without fear. He wanted to ensure that no one felt invisible and that every voice was heard. The surveys would be reviewed by a new employee relations team that would report directly to Malik, ensuring accountability at every level. As Malik walked through the office in the following days, he could already see a change. Employees who had once been hesitant to speak up now greeted him with a sense of hope in their eyes. There was an atmosphere of cautious optimism, a feeling that perhaps things were finally going to get better. Malik knew that the road ahead would not be easy, and that real, lasting change would take time. But he also knew that the first steps had been taken. TechVision was no longer just a company, it was a community. And Malik was committed to leading that community with integrity, respect, and a renewed focus on the people who made it thrive. It was time to rebuild, together. Malik introduced new policies to ensure that every employee felt seen and heard. Regular meetings for open feedback, anonymous reporting channels, and a focus on recognizing hard work became standard practices at Tech Vision. Malik personally became more involved in the day-to-day operations, making sure that everyone knew they mattered. He visited different departments regularly, checking in with employees and listening to their concerns. Malik wanted to break down the barriers that had once existed between management and staff. By doing this, he hoped to create an environment where everyone felt valued and where problems could be addressed before they escalated. It wasn't just about policy changes, it was about shifting the culture to one of empathy, respect, and transparency. Malik also established a committee made up of employees from different levels within the company. This committee was tasked with evaluating workplace policies, suggesting improvements, and ensuring that employee voices were always part of decision-making processes. By including staff from all areas of the company, Malik hoped to bridge the gap that had previously existed between the management and the workforce. The impact of these changes became evident quickly. Employees who had once felt overlooked were now actively participating in meetings and sharing their ideas. Angela thrived in her new role, no longer burdened by the fear of her hard work going unnoticed. Henry embraced his leadership position, bringing his infectious positivity to the IT team and setting an example for others. Doris, who had seen it all during her years at Tech Vision, noticed the shift in the atmosphere. There was a renewed sense of energy and hope. Malik's hands-on approach and genuine concern for every individual had inspired others to do the same. The change was tangible. People smiled more, they collaborated more openly, and they felt proud to be part of Tech Vision. Looking out over the city one evening, Malik felt a renewed sense of purpose. The crisis had tested his leadership, but it had also allowed him to reconnect with the very people who were the foundation of his company. Angela, Henry, Doris, and countless others had stories that deserved to be heard, and Malik vowed to never let anyone in his company feel invisible again. Tech Vision was no longer just about technology, it was about people, and that made all the difference. As Malik stood in the lobby one last time as a receptionist, he smiled at Doris, who gave him a knowing nod. It had been a challenging journey, filled with unexpected twists and emotional revelations, but Malik had uncovered the truth and now had the opportunity to make things right. He had seen firsthand the struggles of his employees, experienced the disconnect between management and staff, and faced the toxic elements that threatened to undermine everything he had built. This was no longer just about salvaging employee satisfaction scores or improving productivity metrics. It was about creating a workplace where everyone felt seen, heard, and valued. Malik was determined to change the narrative at Tech Vision, to build an environment where employees didn't just work, but thrived. He knew the path ahead would not be without its challenges, but he was ready to lead by example and bring everyone along on this transformative journey. As he looked around the lobby, Malik felt a renewed sense of hope. The changes were already taking root. Employees who had once been apprehensive now greeted each other warmly, collaboration was thriving, and a new culture of respect and empathy was beginning to take hold. Malik realized that true leadership wasn't about being in a position of power, it was about empowering others, lifting them up, and ensuring that every person felt their contributions mattered. Before leaving, Malik exchanged a few words with Henry and Angela, both of whom were thriving in their new roles. Their smiles and confidence were proof that the changes were making a real difference. Malik felt a sense of pride knowing that Tech Vision was on the path to becoming the company he had always dreamed it could be, a place where people mattered just as much as the work they did. If you enjoyed this story and want to see more transformative journeys like Malik's, please like, comment, and subscribe. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear your story too. Your voice matters, and together, we can create workplaces that are fair, compassionate, and empowering for everyone. Let's work towards a future where respect, integrity, and empathy are at the core of every business's mission. Your journey starts now. Be a part of the change.